A
It's the final showdown of the NFL season, a Super Bowl showdown between the Oakland Raiders and the Philadelphia Eagles. Today, both are of proven championship caliber. 2 months ago, they were simply the league's hottest teams when they collided at Veterans Stadium. Back then, the Raiders took a 7-3 lead as the fourth quarter opened with an 86-yard Jim Plunkett to Cliff Branch touchdown. Wilbert Montgomery's 3-yard dash capped the Philly drive and a 10-7 Eagles win, a win that put the soaring Eagles into the playoffs. 1 month later, the Raiders, too, were a playoff team. Playing in Oakland, they opened their pursuit of a title by shutting down Houston's Oilers. Lester Hayes completed the 27-7 win and sent the Raiders on to Cleveland. There in the bitter cold, they pounded out a 14-12 lead and then preserved it in the final minute with a Mike Davis interception in the end zone. The Raiders crossed their final bridge in San Diego. This time, the offense was in high gear. The 34-27 verdict made the Raiders truly super. In those playoff weeks, even as the Raiders were marching on New Orleans from the west, Eagles were flexing their muscles in the east. Playing at home, they used a stifling defense to force 8 turnovers, turned back the Central Division champion Vikings. After trailing 14-0, Philly cruised a 31-16 win. Then, by a 20-7 score, they made the Dallas Cowboys their next victim. Near flawless defense and an eye-popping performance by Wilbert Montgomery ticketed the Eagles for New Orleans. Today, the Eagles and the Raiders stand on the threshold of a championship. Their rematch, the matchup for Super Bowl 15. We'll study the league's 2 survivors and also take a lighthearted glance at football players' off-the-field efforts, the commercial efforts that worked so super. We'll recall, too, some of those who went before. The 19 weeks of the 80 season and playoffs in review today, as well as a look at some of the elements that come with the game. The good, the bad, and the ugly that are a part of Super Bowl week. We'll have a report on the problems of compulsive gambling. Also a piece on another American tradition, scalping of Super Bowl tickets. All those stories and more, including a look at the league's top matchup off the field. 4 years ago, Pete Rozelle handed the Lombardi Trophy to Al Davis, and there were smiles all around. Will the scene be repeated? We'll study the possibilities today on NFL 80. The final countdown to Super Bowl 15 has begun. Sports presents NFL 80, an inside look at professional football, a preview of Super Bowl 15. NFL 80 is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. The scene is the French Quarter in New Orleans, Louisiana, where people have come from around the country for a celebration of sorts, the final celebration of the NFL's 61st season, Super Bowl 15, to be held in the Louisiana Superdome, a dome that has been decked out in a yellow ribbon in honor of the hostages returning to American soil after 18 months in captivity. Yellow becoming the predominant color in a sea of green and white and silver and black for what has become a national event. Outside, it's a lovely day in New Orleans, a beautiful 67 degrees. Inside, it's a perfect 68, a perfect setting for a football game. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Louisiana Superdome. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We've got a great ball game on tap between the Eagles and the Raiders. For you basketball fans, don't the Raiders. You know, this is a game that pays tribute to the work ethic. There will be on this field today 24 free agents between the two clubs. That's 24 players that other teams deemed expendable. And underlying it all, there's the good versus evil thing between Pete Rozelle and Al Davis. We'll get into that, as well as take a look at the teams and some other elements that are attendant to staging a Super Bowl. We've got people all around New Orleans who are going to be bringing elements to you. Let's check in first across the way with Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Brian. You talk about work. These men have been working since July. 28 teams started then in the heat of summer, hoping that their trip would take them to New Orleans on this date. The Eagles and the Raiders have made it. They had to play 4 preseason games, 16 regular season games, and then the playoffs to finally earn this right. And the wait has to be agonizing. What do you think they're... Put on the helmet, and what are they feeling right now?
I'm sorry I can't answer that from personal experience, Dick, but it's a highly emotional time. One thing for sure, there are only 2 teams here. And at the end of this day, one will be able to stand a little bit above the other and say with certainty, on this day in the Superdome in Super Bowl 15, we proved that we're the best football team in the world.
You can bet they've all had their fingers measured. They know their ring sizes. Well, we're about 2 hours away from the first quarter, but there's plenty of action in the French quarter. Let's go to Mike Adamle.
Well, Dick, the scene here on Bourbon Street for the last 48 hours has been total bedlam. The interesting thing, however, is that the Oakland and Philly fans have been a model of peaceful coexistence. Only some good-natured ribbing. All that is going to change, however, as they start moving down towards the Superdome, where they're likely to run into the pride of Cincinnati, Ohio, Bob Trumpy.
Thank you, Michael. We're a mile and a half from the French Quarter, and yes, there are already a lot of people assembled here in the concourse of the Superdome. From here today, we're going to look at some young athletes who hope someday to play in the Super Bowl, and also a look at a very extraordinary athlete that we had first introduced to you last Thanksgiving. Now into the Stadium Club with the professor of point spread, Pete Axtell.
Thank you, Trump, although some people might think you're too kind that I'm more of a student than a teacher of this game. But I do get to make the final big pick of the year today, and I'll also look at some Gamblers Anonymous veterans who have a story of the darker side of betting on sports events. Back to you, Brian.
Ed, thank you very much. We can tell you that Virginia has cleared the hurdle of Ohio State, turned them back by 16, 89-73. You know, I mentioned this has been a very big week, and indeed it has. The hostages, of course, returning home, and the inauguration of our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. What does that have to do with football? Well, we ask you to step back in time just a little bit and remember the movie when George Gipp was an All-American.
Boys, this is Mr. George Gipp, freshman from Calumet High School. Mr. Gipp has kindly consented to carry the ball for the Scrubs. Just call any play you like, and they all. They're all the same to him. All right. Watch this, that'll be good.
48, 15, 72. Hank, here we go.
I guess the boys are just tired.
I love the spike. He made it look easy. Let's go from football in fiction to football in fact. A review of the season past, the 61st season. It was from the start a season of surprises. Week 1 saw a number of old faces in new places, and much was expected of Dan Pastorini, who wound up in Oakland, and Ken Stabler in Houston.
They expect so much that everywhere you go, you know, it's handshakes, and we're going to the Super Bowl and things like that. And it's, I take it as a compliment, but it'd be interesting to see their reactions if things don't go good.
The two quarterbacks opened their seasons in opposite fashion. The Snake was picked off 5 times as the Steelers beat the Oilers. Pastorini put the bomb back into Oakland's offense as the Raiders beat the Chiefs. While others were saying hello in Buffalo, week 2 included a welcome home to the Jews. As fans there recalled the Simpson magic, the Bills restored the magic on the field, winning their second of 5 straight. In San Diego, the Chargers and Raiders went to overtime.
He is going for Jefferson. He's got it to the 1-yard line. Touchdown. He wasn't touched. Lester Hayes didn't touch him. Jefferson rolls in for the victory.
By week 3, they were dancing in the streets of Motown. Billy Sims and the Lions were hot and specializing in upsets. But the week's biggest upset was pulled off by the Bengals at the expense of the Steelers.
Kick is up. It's on the way. It's traveling. It's far enough. It's no good, and the Bengals upset the world champion Steelers.
Week 4 found the spotlight on the AFC East. The emotional Bills turned back the Raiders, and the Patriots welcomed their all-pro corner back into the fold.
I didn't know if I was going to be in football or out of football. And I was, pretty fortunate. My wife was behind me, and, I thought I was doing what was right.
The season's 5th Sunday featured a number of games decided by breaks. In Cleveland, the Browns succumbed to the Denver Broncos when the break of a bounce left Randy Gradishar with the ball and a clear 93-yard runway to the end zone. Meanwhile, in Oakland, a different kind of break ended Dan Pastorini's season and set the stage for the improbable heroics of one Jim Plunkett. On his 6th week, the Jets were a surprise of a different sort. They were winless and restless.
the only way I look at it is that we must be more intense on the football field. We have to be more physical. We have to be more reckless. And as an old mentor of ours used to say, we have to play with reckless abandon and get after people.
Heeding the words of their coach, the young Jets won their first with a strong performance in Atlanta, a city in love with its Falcons. Love was the watchword in Houston, Texas, too. Folks were fond of Love You Blue.
Love you blue.
Love you blue.
Yes, we love you blue. Love you blue. You know that we do. We'll always be true.
Love you blue.
What Houston fans loved most were the efforts of Earl Campbell. By midseason, he was rolling and turned in consecutive games of better than 200 yards rushing. The midpoint also found our Pete Axthelm debating the worth of the Lions without offending a real one. Byron Donzis demonstrating a better way to protect football players. It came at a time when Burt Jones could have used all the help he could get. Against the Cardinals, Jones was sacked a record-tying 12 times. But in total, he was not racked as hard as Ron Jaworski was. One controversial blindside effort of Mike Hartenstein.
You know, when you play this game, you realize that you're going to take those shots occasionally, and it's just one of those things. And I don't have any animosity towards him. Hey, his job is to to bang the quarterback as hard as he can. And he's got coaches screaming at him every day of every week to get the quarterback. So he had his chance and he took advantage of it.
Well, I don't think he did it as a dirty play per se. I'm more upset with a referee that's standing right there and doesn't call it. I saw it as a defensive lineman dropping his helmet, sticking a man behind the neck, and then shoving him.
In Week 10, we had a report from Cincinnati on Moeller High School coach Jerry Faust, the man headed for Notre Dame to replace Dan Devine. Meanwhile, in New York, fans were feeling agony and ecstasy. The ecstasy supplied by the Giants, who beat the Cowboys. The agony from the Jets, who lost to the Bills.
Ferguson, first and 10, stands in, lets it go long. Here's the man open. The ball is caught for a Buffalo touchdown by Frank Lewis.
By Week 10, Jets fans had grown accustomed to defeat. So had fans of the winless New Orleans Saints, who took to Aints Bag.
We would be more embarrassed if we wasn't wearing the bag.
Week 12 included a preview of the Super Bowl. Raiders had won 6 in a row when the Eagles beat them. But the day's most dramatic game was played in Pittsburgh. The Steelers kept playoff hopes alive in the final minute.
Bradshaw.
Issues discussed in November included discussion of the annual Heisman hype. While others argue the worth of the favorites, we at NFL 80 convened a panel to guess the winner.
In keeping with our television theme, I saw Newt Rockne All-American the other night, and Ronald Reagan had 3 terrific games as George Gipp, and he'd probably be my second choice.
I'm going to vote for Doak Walker again because he should have won. He should have won it twice, and Archie Griffin won it twice, and he shouldn't have won it once.
Down in Atlanta, a slow whistle and a debatable decision may have cost Chicago's Bears a ball game. Walter Payton's temper brought contact with an official, and then ejection, and then a fine, and finally an admission from the league that the officials had been wrong and Payton right from the start. We leave you at Week 10, but only temporarily. Here inside the Superdome, people are starting to file in, and down on Bourbon Street, the people are crowding the streets. Indeed, in this city that gave birth to the blues, this joint is jumping. nightlife of Bourbon Street now giving way to the daytime pleasures of Super Bowl 15. We'll take a look at the Raiders' point of view, a silver and black season, when we come back. Thank you very much. Here in New Orleans, we're getting set for the Raiders and the Eagles, and as you approach the Dome, all roads lead to the Super Bowl. It's a road the Raiders, some of their fans found them surprised to be on. Michael?
Well, Brian, they're starting to move towards the Superdome, and as you look at the Oakland fans, you have to wonder that today may be the last time that they get the chance to see their team play under the banner of the Oakland Raiders, as Al Davis might have his way come February 9th. But there has been some gratification for them. This has been the most exciting, most improbable season ever. A preview of Super Bowl 15 was held last November 23rd when the Eagles hosted the Raiders in Veterans Stadium. Jim Plunkett and his teammates were riding the crest of a 6-game winning streak. Oakland's defense was impressive enough as they held the Eagles to only 10 points, and in particular, the play of Wilbert Montgomery. But offensively was another story. Plunkett had limited success throwing the ball, but he did manage to uncork this 86-yard bomb to Cliff Branch over rookie Roynell Young for the Raiders' only score. Despite the 10-7 loss to Philadelphia, the team regrouped and marched into the playoffs as the AFC wildcard team. Earl Campbell and Kenny Stabler expected to romp, but Lester Hayes had other ideas with this interception. Plunkett burned Houston's defense with this strike to number 22, Arthur Winnington, whose speed was no match for Oiler linebackers. But the game was controlled by a defensive back who just happened to be the AFC's Defensive Player of the Year, Lester Hayes. Here he picks off a Kenny Stabler pass, races 20 yards to seal the victory over Houston. That wild card victory earned Oakland a trip to the ultra-frigid shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. Wind chill factor at game time 37 below zero, and both the Raiders and the Browns had to operate on a frozen municipal stadium floor. Fullback Mark Van Egan scored both of the Oakland touchdowns, good for a Raider 14-12 lead late in the game. And then perhaps the most climatic play of the playoffs. With just seconds remaining, Ozzie Newsome is open, but Mike Davis steps in front, picks off Brian Sipes' pass, and Oakland wins and moves on to the AFC Championship in San Diego, where Jim Plunkett had his finest hour. The former Stanford ace hit on 14 of 18 passes and 2 touchdowns, including this deflection into the arms of Raymond Chester, which perhaps characterized the Oakland season as Destiny's Darlings. Plunkett was masterful in utilizing all of his receivers. Here, running back Kenny King gets the touchdown call. Oakland's defense and Lester Hayes' single coverage on John Jefferson frustrated the Chargers all afternoon long. However, San Diego had a chance to get back in the ballgame when Jefferson worked his way open. However, he couldn't hang on to the ball, and it was the Raiders in the Super Bowl.
This is the big one. This is definitely the big one. We first got into it. Into the playoffs. We were looking at 4 games. So like a whole new season. We wanted to go 4-0. So we're 3-0 so far, and 1 more to go. And this is the big one.
Philadelphia hasn't changed very much since we played them last year. Doing the same things on defense that they did then, and in the passing situations, to come in with 4 down linemen and put on a real good pass rush.
It's going to be very tough against Philadelphia because they put that pressure at the front man line, and they play a 3-man zone a lot, and they play deep. They give you a lot of room in front of them, but they play so far off the ball, so it's going to be real tough to get deep.
On the offensive line, we just got to block a little longer so they can get open. I might have to take a little rope out there to tie those guys up in case it takes longer than I think.
I don't think we're going to be blitzing Philadelphia that much. We're going to play them head up. And just like we did the last game, big physical game, and see who comes out on top.
Yes, we will be physical with Harold Carmichael and company. He's an extremely large individual. He's 6'8", 225 pounds, and the only way we can stop an individual with his dimensions is to bang on him a little bit and be aggressive and play within the limits of the rules of the NFL, but be extremely aggressive against him.
I wouldn't classify it as intimidating him. I would like to just take away some of his weapons. And by doing that is make them know you're around. And you know how important that is and how that can change a quarterback's game plan.
This game here, I think all the psychological advantages are, you can throw those out the window. The only thing this means is that there's no other games besides this one, and you don't have to worry about getting injured. You got 6 months to recuperate.
I'm very happy to see a good-looking Polish kid at the controls of a Super Bowl team.
We've seen how the Raiders got here. We'll get to the Eagles side of the coin a bit later. But first, a commercial message, and then Super Sunday Countdown continues right after this.
With people with two legs, you play on the nose of the center, but you were the quickest man off the ball.
If I can beat the center off the ball, that means figure that I can mess up the whole, running game.
We also saw you run down a quarterback. I used the phrase run. It was hop down a quarterback, but still, that's a tremendous effort.
To me, I see that he tried to outrun me, and to myself, I tried to avoid that. So I
cut down the angle.
Yeah, I cut down the angle.
Are you, at this point in your life, what are you, 19 years old?
Yes, 19.
Are you, at this point in your life, a little bit upset that you don't have that second leg?
No, I'm not really, because I should be thankful for what I got, because me with one leg doing all this time, there's no more than I can ask for. So I thank God for it.
Carl has been invited to Super Bowl 15 here in New Orleans as the guest of the NFL. Welcome to the Super Bowl, Carl.
Yep, I enjoy it. Since I got here late the other night, and I enjoyed it so far, meeting all kind of news writers and, did a lot of write-up on me. And it's a terrific so far.
Since we talked to you on Thanksgiving of last year, you were the subject of a book, One of a Kind, The Legend of Carl Joseph, and all over the country promoting this book. You're a media superstar, my friend.
Yeah, so far. Well, to me, I don't consider that a superstar, but, best of whatever they give me. So
Still the same Carl Joseph,
yeah, the same Carl Joseph.
All right. Well, let's you and I go in and watch the Super Bowl. We're both rookies here.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Bob Trumpy. I'm not sure if he's a media superstar, but he's a superstar of humanity, a tribute, if you will, to the human spirit. We're going to step aside for just a moment. When we come back, Pete Axtell will take a look at Gamblers in Trouble. We'll get to that after this. Superdome, we've made a second move inside to the comfort of our skybox overlooking the Louisiana Superdome. And even as we prepare for Super Bowl 15, we acknowledge the fact that while betting is illegal around most of this country, this event is still a very big betting event. Pete Axtell has taken lighthearted looks at gambling throughout the season. Now the more serious side.
Know when to hold up, know when to fold up, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. All season long, we've had some fun trying to pick winners, maybe even bet on them. But there's a side to gambling that can be as bleak as this New York winter day outside this betting parlor. It can become a disease like alcoholism, and it can ruin lives. To get that side of the story, I talked to a couple of guys from Gamblers Anonymous.
I was one time in the supermarket, and I had on me $350, and my son asked me to get him a $5 toy. And it was a Saturday, and then I was all prepared to go to the club and play poker. And the minute the kid asked me for a $5 toy, in my sick head, I thought right away, I said to myself, I can't sit on the table to play cards with $345. I have to sit with $350, because at the end, maybe the $5 it will be that money that will bring back the money that I lost.
It seems like one symptom of the compulsive gambler is a kind of false optimism. Would you go along with that? Were you always thinking you could somehow get even, get out?
That's the dream of the compulsive gambler. He's in a dream world. Don't get me wrong, there's many a times I made scores. Like, I made 20 trips to Las Vegas in a 10-month period. And on a good portion of those trips, I came back with a lot of money. I'd come back with $15,000, $18,000 in my pocket, only to lose it here within a week or two's time with the bookmaker.
Well, I walk the streets of New York, and you go by an OTB office every day. And I used to go into these places, and I see the people running like I used to run to get in that bet.
You always owe money. The bills are never paid on time. And you're always saying to your wife, don't worry. That's one of the greatest two words that a compulsive gambler says, is don't worry.
the worries of betting have long been the subject of study by Sergei Sanger, a psychiatrist and consultant to the National Council on Compulsive Gambling.
The idea of being special is something which is every child's birthright. Every youngster should feel that they're special. What sometimes happens that I've looked at in the history of the compulsive gambler in their childhood is that they may have been special and then suddenly demoted, either by the birth of another child or by something that happened in the family or by just the fact that they're not as special to their parents, and they don't accept that. And their way of doing it is to say, I'm different from everyone, I have special luck.
I was married when I was 23. I'm 37 now, and I had 2 kids from that marriage. I'm divorced now. And when my son was 4, I left. In the first 4 years of his life, what he saw of me was watching television constantly, watching ball games, and not being a normal person. My first wife, if it was convenient to be with her, if there was no games on, I was with her. If it was convenient to talk to her because there was no games on, I did. I didn't sleep well at night because I had to hear late scores. I didn't sleep at all on Sunday night to try to figure out how I was going to get the money to pay the bookmakers.
Basically, when I borrowed money from loan sharks, I'll give you a ballpark figure of, say, $1,000 from a Shylock. Now, I used to get at a fairly good rate at 1.5% a week. We call it 1.5 a week. But the average fee, from what I understand today from the people that are coming in, is anywhere from 3 to 5% a week. Now, 5% a week is 250% a year on a loan. So in other words, you're taking $1,000. At the end of the year, this man has collected $2,500, and you still owe him the original $1,000.
The pathological gambling is defined as someone who gambles beyond what they can possibly gamble with financially. More than they can afford. They gamble to the detriment of their family, of their job, of their bank account. They gamble to the detriment of their own self-improvement.
You got to know when to hold up, know when to fold up, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough to count when the deal is done.
Pete Axtell, once the compulsive gambler has been so-called cured, how far away is he from ever going back?
You know, I asked everyone that, Bryant, like if they just sat down and played a hand of gin with me or made a bet on one game just to watch the Super Bowl, couldn't they handle that? And every one of them had the same answer. They're like an alcoholic. They've quit, but they've never claimed they're cured.
For people out there who might be watching who like to bet a bob or two every now and then, what's the tip-off that, hey, this is more than just fun, you're close to being sick?
Well, one of the keys that one fella told me that when he realized he may really be in trouble was when he'd get a score on a game he'd bet on and he lost it, and he'd keep buying more newspapers and turning on other radio stations hoping somebody would tell him they'd given the wrong score.
It's a great story, but it's not a laughing matter. Thank you, Peter Axtell. The Goodyear Blimp America is hovering now about 1,000 feet above the Superdome and Bourbon Street. The pilot, Captain Larry Chambers from Spring, Texas, he along with us, waiting for the start of the big event, Super Bowl XV. We'll continue our countdown to the Super Bowl. As we take a look at the Week in Review, we'll get to that, the Year in Review, after this. Are in the Super Bowl not only as conference champions, but as the survivors of a long and arduous season. We've seen part 1 of our Year in Review. Let's unjam the playoff picture. With 3/4 of the season gone, most fans were looking to the playoffs or thinking of next year. Fans in Oakland were doing a little of both, as well as looking to save the Raiders from moving to L.A. Meanwhile, Week 13 found the Browns beating the Oilers, taking over first place.
1:27 left to go. Stabler with lots of time. Interception! Scott! Browns have it clear at Scott with the interception.
The Browns' victory set off a welcome home celebration for the team at Cleveland's airport. It sent some of the city's residents into a near-frenzied state of euphoria. The following week, the Browns had a chance to make the division title theirs, but the Browns were beaten by the Vikings in the game's final play. Owner Art Modell looking on, Tommy Kramer's desperation heave down the Browns to clinch the crown for the Vikes.
Up in the air. Going deep. They're hoping. Tip. Caught. Jacob. You're kidding. The Vikings. They win it. Time is run out.
While the Browns finish provided one type of excitement, in San Diego, fans were thrilled by the record-setting exploits of Eric Coryell.
Quarterback Dan Fouts enjoyed a record-setting passing year. The 3 San Diego flagships named Charlie Joyner, John Jefferson, and Kellen Winslow each topped the 1,000-yard mark, making the Chargers the first NFL team ever to score such a triple. There was time, too, for another first. In Week 16, the Dolphins and Jets played, but the game had to speak for itself. It had no TV announcer. Everybody's fans went crazy at times, but we found a full-timer in Crazy George.
No, I'm a professional sex symbol, actually, not a cheerleader. Do you believe that?
When the regular season ended and the second season began, the Raiders and Oilers staged a wild-card duel in Oakland. Jim Plunkett's offense carved out a 13-point lead, and then Master Thief Lester Hayes sealed the 27-7 win with the game's final score. The game marked the end of the Oilers season. Bum Phillips' last game as Houston's coach. 1 week later, the Chargers and Bills made their playoff appearance. Behind a hobbling Joe Ferguson, Buffalo led San Diego by 1 with just a minute and a half to play. That's when Dan Fouts dramatically rewrote the ending.
Run!
On the very next day, the AFC playoff site was Cleveland. Wind chill factor put everyone involved in a sub-zero freezer. Conditions reduced player finesse, but not the game's quality. Just when it appeared that the Cleveland Browns would end the Oakland Raiders season, Mike Davis made a last-minute interception to send his team on to San Diego in a confrontation with Dan Fouts and the high-scoring Chargers.
We've got some different things planned for Mr. Fouts to make it a tough day for him, but you can only stop Dan so much. He's very good, and with the receiving core he has, we have to play the greatest defensive game we've played all year, and we're planning on doing that, Mr. Fouts.
Among the surprises the Raiders unleashed on Fouts and company were a defensive front that harassed his every move and a secondary that picked off 3 of his passes. The Raiders made the turnovers count and made the most of their breaks. When Oakland's first series featured a tipped Jim Plunkett to Kenny King to Raymond Chester pass that went 65 yards for an opening touchdown, it was apparent that this was to be a day that was painted silver and black. It started on a spectacular play and ended with Jim Plunkett cradling his team's ticket to New
Down to
Orleans.
the final seconds, 5-4, the Oakland Raiders and the Philadelphia Eagles go to Super Bowl 15.
Here inside the Superdome, it's the calm before the storm, but I suspect just the opposite exists where Mike Adamle is down in the French Quarter. Michael.
Well, Brian, it's really hard to believe because people are still flowing down Bourbon Street. In fact, some of them look like they don't even want to leave. They're having more fun here. I'll tell you one thing. I would like to wake up tomorrow morning as an antacid salesman. You talk about gastronomic impropriety. These people have been mixing raw oysters with hurricanes, warm beer with stuffed shrimp. Tomorrow morning, they're going to wake up with some kind of hangover, some kind of stomach ache. Let's go back to you, to Brian Gobble, inside the Superdome.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. We're going to step aside for just a minute. When we come back, we'll look at Philly's road to New Orleans. We will get to that right after these messages from your local station.
Just like the winner's circle.
Back in the early 70s, Eagle fans used to be so tough they would boo Santa Claus, but all that's changed now because Dick Vermeil is on the scene, and the Eagles truly have a team you can cheer about, right? Yeah! In Week 12 of the NFL season, Eagle coach Dick Vermeil had little trouble motivating his team against Oakland. A 7-game win streak and a chance to clinch a playoff berth provided plenty of incentive. Philadelphia's trenchnet, led by Carl Hairston, Charlie Jones, Claude Humphrey, and Denny Harrison, reacted as if Jim Plunkett was on sale with sacks and a furious pass rush. Offensively, Wilbert Montgomery's run with 2:56 left in the game was the only touchdown the Eagles needed in the 10-7 win. In their opening playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings, the Eagles fell behind 14-0. But in the second quarter, Ron Jaworski went to work. Here, Jaws unloads to Harold Carmichael for a 9-yard touchdown toss to make it 14-7 at halftime. In the third quarter, the Vikings' Tommy Kramer gave Philadelphia field position when linebacker Frank LeMaster, number 55, picked his pocket on this deflected pass. Wilbert Montgomery parlayed the interception with this scoring jaunt. Although diminutive, Montgomery packs plenty of power, as evidenced by this run. It was a run that turned the tide of the game. The Eagles went on to roll 31-16 over Minnesota. And Coach Dick Vermeil was carried into his first NFC Championship game. Now only the Dallas Cowboys remain to be conquered. Wilbert Montgomery broke loose in the first quarter for this 42-yard touchdown run, a run that established the tempo of the game. Montgomery is clearly the man who makes the Eagles go. At game time, his health was questioned. He was playing on an injured knee, but you couldn't tell it here as he simply races away from a frustrated Dallas secondary. Montgomery's counterpart to the Dallas Cowboys big play man Tony Dorsett only gained 41 yards and was frustrated by the Eagles defense. Here he commits a costly fumble, and it's picked up by the Eagles linebacker Jerry Robinson, number 56. Eagles controlled the line of scrimmage, enabling Montgomery and fullback Leroy Harris, number 20, to gain 263 yards on the ground. But it was the man from Abilene Christian who had the day. 194 yards, just too short of the NFL championship game record set by Steve Van Buren. And when it was all said and done, Philadelphia had a 20-7 victory over the Dallas Cowboys and its first football champion since 1960.
I really believe, aside from the character we have and the ability we have, probably one of our big assets has been our resiliency, our ability to come back through adversity and keep fighting and always make the big play. And it's really been the trademark of our team, you know, through the whole season. Is each week, each game, someone else has risen to the occasion and made the big play, and we've been able to come up with the win.
Having played Oakland before, in a ball game such as this, I can just see a very physical, hard-fought game in the trenches, and they're alley fighters, street fighters, and they're big, tough people, and to be able to control them on the line of scrimmage, I think, will be a key for us defensively.
John Matuzak, he's about 6'9", about 285, runs about a 4.6 40. A lot of problems. He's big, strong, quick, aggressive, to say the least, and he's tough.
Well, first of all, just make sure that Ted Hendry, don't get to the quarterback, because that, he has been a key factor to Oakland defense this year.
We know that they usually go man-to-man on most of their coverages, and really I don't know how they're going to cover me, whether they're going to go double coverage on me, but if they do, they put double coverage on me, somebody else on the other side is going to burn them.
My key concern is, they're a very physical team, and I think it's going to be really important for me to be as physical as possible. They have to do a great job on the tight ends, and they have a great running attack, so I'll be involved a great deal in the running game.
Every week a corner is on the hot seat, regardless if you're in the sandlot, in the regular season, preseason, but now it's the Super Bowl, so all the eyes are watching, and people remember big plays, and if a guy happens to catch a touchdown on you, and you lose the game, you can go home, and people will say, oh yeah, you're the guy that caught the touchdown on us.
The Raiders and Eagles are here as invited guests, but the other folks have to pay something different to get in. We'll get to that in a moment. The countdown is being brought to you by, and that those who ultimately paid the most to see this game are those who bought the rights to one of these luxurious skyboxes that sit atop here in the Louisiana Superdome. Well, it's probable the people who will jam in here did not pay that much to see the game, but it's also a good bet that many of them paid more than the $40 face value. As John Dancy reports.
The Super Bowl is big business for New Orleans. Fans have been pouring in all week, ready to spend money. It's also big business for ticket scalpers. NBC recently bought 2 tickets from a hotel bellboy who was unaware he was being filmed on a hidden camera.
And a week before the game, there's no telling how many it's going to happen. Is that only if Oakland wins? No. We'll probably have a good supply, no matter who wins, but if Oakland wins, we're going to just have a bunch of them. Wow. So I don't know how they get the tickets. I'm just doing them a favor.
That's terrific. Yeah, that's great. Well, we certainly want 2, and if you can get more, we have friends.
How many more did you need?
Producers Les Dennis and Len Tepper paid $225 apiece for the $40 tickets.
It's Honorian jersey. 201 code.
Oh, you got I can get a business card.
I don't have a business card, but where are these on?
These are in the loge, which is the best section in the Superdome. Anywhere in the loge, no matter if it's the end zone, 50-yard line, whatever, you can see beautifully.
These are the seats that cost us $225 apiece. A chair behind the regular seats in the end zone. There are better seats available. On the 50-yard line, the scalpers are getting $500 apiece for them. And there are plenty of them around. Ticket scalping is a prerogative of those who get tickets at face value, like the players. Former Dallas Cowboy Mel Renfro says he did it.
Well, in 1977, I was approached by some people in Los Angeles, people that I'd known for a long time, and I believe they were had travel agencies to provide tickets for them, and I did. Not a whole lot of tickets, perhaps 80 tickets, and I think 20 of them were my own tickets. The going price was anywhere from $90 to perhaps $150. It would change, it seemed, day by day according to the demand for them.
Ticket scalping is not illegal in Texas, and in any case, Renfro says he gave the profits to the players who had given him tickets to sell. Ticket scalping is fueled by brokers who seek out Super Bowl tickets, paying inflated prices and selling at even more inflated prices. One of the major brokers is Murray's of Los Angeles, which recently ran this ad in several major papers. Producer Len Tepper called the Los Angeles number and talked to a woman who identified herself as Bambi. The tickets, she said, would cost $150 to $500.
What differentiates the tickets from $150 to $500?
The answer, if you want to sit in the end zone, you'll be paying $150. You want to sit on the 40 or 50-yard line, you'll be paying $500. Bambi said Tepper would have to send a bank-to-bank transfer of the money.
If I'm in New Orleans and the tickets are New Orleans, why don't I just, come wherever, when the guy comes to deliver the tickets, I'll give him the money?
Bambi, nope, can't do it.
Why not?
We cannot do it that way, sir, because we cannot do it that way. You have to send a bank wire. So the next day, we did just that, sending $500 to a bank account in Los Angeles for 2 seats. Sending the money to California, where scalping is not illegal, gets around the Louisiana law, which makes ticket scalping a crime. We had no assurance the tickets would ever be delivered. But the next day, a man who called himself Jerry arranged to meet us on a street.
Can I ask a stupid question? How the hell do you get these tickets?
Oh, it's hard.
Where do you get them from? I hear all these stories about the scalping.
That's us. We're a ticket broker.
You're a ticket broker?
Yeah.
But is this illegal? I'm just curious.
We don't sell tickets here, so that's period. If you want tickets, like you go through the L.A. office, all I'm doing is delivering tickets. I don't sell.
Where do scalp tickets come from? Who first sells them at scalpers' prices? Management blames the players. Players blame management.
Thank you very much.
NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle says his office keeps a list of which teams get which tickets, but he refuses to release the list. Commissioner, here are 4 tickets that we bought through scalpers here in New Orleans. We have asked your office repeatedly for the last 2 weeks for a list that would show where these tickets came from. So far, your office has not been willing to provide that list. Why not?
It could improperly impugn the integrity of a team. The problem is the club could have sold it to a secretary. She found out she couldn't go. She could have sold it to a friend who in turn sells it to someone for a profit, and then maybe several sell it for a profit before it reaches New Orleans where, say, you purchased these. The basic problem is you cannot control the resale of a ticket. There's just no practical way. We have printed right on the back that the ticket is not to be resold for profit. But enforcing that's another story. You could turn over all of them into a monastery, but that still wouldn't control what's going to happen to them later.
Most Super Bowl tickets are allotted to the teams, the league office, and the press. Only about 1,000 seats are available to non-season ticket holders. That makes a Super Bowl seat one of the hottest tickets around. Former Washington Redskins player Brig Owen says it's a seller's market.
Just as the energy crisis, the gasoline shortage, people are talking about they would pay any price to get the gasoline. There were situations during the energy crisis where people were sitting in line and There's gentlemen selling ice cream and Coke for a dollar a bottle. If someone wants something bad enough, they're going to pay the price for it.
John Dansley, NBC News, New Orleans.
As you see the thousands filing into the Superdome, John, I have a question for you. I know that you bought those tickets earlier in the week. What happens as the game is about to take place? What happens to the price of the tickets then?
Panic selling starts. A lot of people are out there on the street selling those tickets right now, and some panic selling has really set in, Bob, because the price is going down rapidly.
All right, you paid $225 for them a couple of days ago. What are they going for now?
We bought our tickets in section 305. I had a guy out on the street just a little while ago offer me 2 tickets in section 305 for $75 a piece.
Is that right? I can relate one story, too. There was a gentleman out of Philadelphia who 2 weeks ago paid $200 for his tickets. So it's not just true here in New Orleans. Back to you, Brian.
Okay, Bob, John, thank you much. Some commercial efforts have been super. You've seen those. We'll show you the not-so-super ones that you haven't seen when we come back. The Dome, all roads are leading to the Super Bowl, and the Eagles and Raiders are taking some pregame warm-ups on the field. They've already displayed their excellence on the field, but off it, that's another story. Let's go to Mike Adams.
Brian, all football players are conditioned to fear the word cut. However, in the commercial television business, it's quite a different story. As in cut, you want to try it again, LC?
Hey, today they sent me some Brute 33 antiperspirant. The aerosol spray, easy roll-on. The antiperspirant stick, how about that? And the new non-aerosol spray.
84. Okay, read it like you mean it, LC. Real tough, real mean.
When it comes to keeping his feet, there's only one Steeler I can't beat.
That's a good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, this time a little more emotion. Just imitate Laurence Olivier. Ready? Action.
When it comes to keeping his feet, there's only one Steeler I can't beat.
Tell you what, LC, work on the line a little. We'll get back to you. Okay, action. Slow, slow. Hey, kid. All right, cut.
All the signs look good today, and everything seems to go your way.
Today's your Brute day.
You can feel your luck running hot.
LC, got it? Try it like a poem, a limerick, okay? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
When it comes to keeping his feet, there's only one Steeler I can't beat.
Okay, down. LC, let's try something different. Try it real broad with lots of emotion.
When it comes to keeping his feet, there's only one Steeler I can't beat.
LC, we'll get back to you.
That's why so many professionals also wear Brute 33 antiperspirant sprays.
There's only one Steeler I trust with...
Once again,
Bonnie, Roy! There's only one Steeler I trust with my girl, and it's none of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Funny, Roy. Just real funny.
All right, here we go. Everybody's into the lane. Background, I see a guy naked walking out there. Here we go.
Raleigh.
Good. So, there we go.
Imitation
Ready.
of a guy.
Into the lens, and action.
There's only one Steeler I trust with my... That's so funny, Roy. Ha ha.
Here we go. Once again.
Come on, man. Gee.
Wait, it's your turn.
Get his name. Will you right there?
Here we go. And
there's only one Steeler I trust with my girl. I know it's a tough line.
Okay, LC, this is an Academy Award-winning performance time. Real big, real animated.
When it comes to keeping his feet, there's only one Steeler I can't defeat.
Okay, Bradshaw, what'd you think of that? That's a wrap.
What do you mean I got to try it again? You know, all season long, Pete Axel has acted as our fearless prognosticator. On the season, he's a perfect 500. Today, the big pick, and as any child of 10 can plainly see, I have his pick. But do you think I'm going to tell you? No, I'll let Axe do that.
I figure almost any handicapper can finish the season, make his Super Bowl selection on a neutral court. I did it the hard way in New Orleans. I picked out Molly's at the Market, unofficially designated as Eagle fans' headquarters, and I think the headquarters for some other pretty wacky characters. I'm going to check it out. Surrounded by a very interesting collection of Eagle fans, I want to start by looking at the positive sides of the Eagles' chances in this game. The big one, I think, is it's being played on artificial turf. The Eagles are a carpet-built team, and they've only played 3 times all year off the rug. The Raiders, on the other hand, love deep, wet, natural grass. So on the rug, I think that's really the reason the Eagles are a 3-point favorite. There was an obvious veteran of competition on artificial surfaces. As for the second thing, Tony Franklin, a barefoot kicker, outdoors in the cold, second half of the season, he had a slump. But now he's back indoors at room temperature, and he could be good for 3 or even 6 points that the Eagles might not ordinarily get outdoors. Don't try and tell me that was Tony Franklin getting ready for the game. Well, I have some enemies in Philadelphia. I've been known to write, for instance, that the Phillies were not my favorite team in the World Series. Got some great hate mail. I don't want the same thing now, and I want to look at the bright side for the Eagles. But let's face it, the Raiders have brought me this far. I've got to go with them one more week. So for the Super Bowl, my final bonus pick of the year, take the Raiders plus the 3.
Jackstone made his desires known in public and got a laugh. But some of the desires being made known undercover here in New Orleans are not so funny. We'll get to that. The senior side, a problem attendant to a Super Bowl, when we come back. Hospitable host for Super Bowl XV, and most of the people here have had a great time. But you know, when a city takes on the job of holding this game, they also take on the problems attendant to that game. Problems not necessarily unique to that city and not necessarily pretty. Michael?
Brian, earlier in the week, we were granted special permission by the New Orleans Police Department to film them on their appointed rounds. What follows might best be described as a typical night in the life of a vice squad officer during Super Bowl week. I think you're going to find it fascinating.
My grandmother's watching.
Much of the allure of New Orleans lies in its reverence to tradition. Paddleboats can still be seen cruising down the Mississippi. Statues pay homage to its military and musical heritage. But despite its old world charm, New Orleans, like other major cities, suffers from modern-day problems, especially when the Super Bowl comes to town.
The crime of prostitution in Louisiana is a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine up to $500 and up to 6 months in our parish or county jail.
Where normally on a night we'll make 2 or 3 arrests, and right now, winding down the Super Bowl, we'll make 5, 6, 7, 8 arrests a night.
Right now we have nothing else working but scalping and prostitution.
In a city with a 200-year history of easy amusement and easy virtue, these crimes are perhaps easier to hide. That's something the New Orleans Police Department tries to prevent.
All right, now tonight, these are the plans for tonight. We're going to the French Quarter, as you all know. We're going to work prostitution and scalping. We expect a large crowd tomorrow night because of the 4-day weekend for the hotels. And so be prepared tomorrow night. We're going to work in groups. Okay, let's go out and make some arrests.
You're under arrest for prostitution for $30. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in trial. You have a right to consult with and obtain advice from an attorney before making any statements.
Do you have any records or estimations of the number of arrests that you made during the last Super Bowl that was held here in 1978?
In January of '78, we arrested 76 people for prostitution.
So most of those during the Super Bowl week, do you suspect?
Most, yes, it would be.
Are your efforts stepped up during the course of the Super Bowl week, and if so, why?
Well, with the great amount of the influx of prostitutes and much more of everything, we try and address everything, put more manpower out on the street.
What is a typical customer like during the course of the Super Bowl?
Like the guy next door, affluent, a businessman from any neighborhood. He can pay his way. He's affluent enough where he can take a vacation, come to the game. When he's out for a good time, he spends money.
How much money is he likely to spend for that good time?
With the prostitute, it begins at $40 and whatever, and goes up to whatever the church pays.
Mike. Lieutenant, describe the typical prostitute that works the French Quarter.
She's 18 to 26. There's many black as white. Some dope fiends or some addicts in them. Generally not. Most come from out of town. They drift in and they just stay a while, apply their trade, and drift out.
When you're going to
stake out a joint for gambling or alleged prostitution. Describe what takes place to have an arrest being made.
The gambling is a more difficult thing. It requires about a 2-week period. It's done with warrants, court orders for information, and surveillances which occur over about a 2-week period. The prostitution case is a quicker thing in that the man goes out on the street on any given night and avails himself to the services of the woman. It's generally a head-and-head confrontation. It takes a half hour.
Come here. Boys, y'all under arrest, okay?
Yeah, we all know that.
You under your rights?
Mm-hmm.
What's your conviction rate?
99%.
How quickly are they back out in the streets?
They make bond that night. There's about a $500 bond, and they make it immediately. Where I bragged of a 98% conviction rate, very, very few of those convicted are given jail sentences. They receive a fine of some probably averages $250, $250 to $350, and it's merely a working expense. They pay it and they go on about their business. They're back out in the street in business within a matter of hours, and they continue.
You're beating your head up against a wall. That's the way I look at it, but I don't mind it. You know, I do my job. I put them in jail, and it's up to the court to keep them there.
I don't believe that any increase in vice type of crimes in Orleans Parish is based upon the fact that this is the city that I forgot, Fun City. I believe that our city attracts visitors because of the old world charm and the number of activities that we have here. And I don't believe this attracts any particular number of those criminals or those people that are interested in committing vice type of crime offenses, other than any other affair might be in any other city.
Mike Adamley, I think it's worth noting again that this problem is certainly not unique to New Orleans, but also those guys you were out with the past few nights, they know this is a war they can't win, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. All of them said that I asked them if it was futile and that perhaps they would like to quit and do something else, and they said no. They took a lot of pride in the work that they did, and they'll continue to do it as long as they're paid by the police department and work for them.
Okay, Mike, from that one we go to a happier note. We understand the hostages are arriving at West Point. We're looking forward to a report from NBC News as we continue throughout this day, as we continue our countdown to Super Bowl 15. We'll return to that right after these messages from your local station. The Goodyear blimp is overhead. Captain Larry Chambers at the controls, and Captain Chambers, along with the rest of us, waiting anxiously now for the Raiders and the Eagles to do battle in Super 15. Bob Trumpy is out among them, and he's got the accent on youth. Bob?
You are right, Brian. I'm sitting with Joe Pelusi of New Jersey. And, Joe, I got a question for you. You a football fan?
What?
Are you a football fan?
Yeah.
Would you like to play in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite team?
Eagles.
Well, we don't want to show favoritism, but we did find a lot of young kids in Fort Bragg who also like to play football. But it's not just true at the professional level. For these teenagers at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the game may be scaled down, but the intensity, the will to win, it's already apparent in these athletes.
Right shoulder, right shoulder. Let's go, Ron.
On
hut two, hut three.
Lord, my shepherd.
Lord, my shepherd.
I shall not want.
I shall not want.
Watch over the Packers.
Watch over the Packers.
Protect the other team.
Protect the other team. Bless the Packers.
Amen.
Amen.
1, 2, 3.
I want the power shift, power pitch, right. Tell him to do it quick on 1. Carlos, let's go, animal.
You tell Bill he has the option of passing. Okay, he can run the ball, but I want a halfback option pass right.
Sweep left. Sweep right. No, sweep left. Sweep left.
I want that outside linebacker to hit and drop back. So you tell Lewis on that side that that's his responsibility. Okay.
40 pitch and come right back with flanker right, sweep flicker. Okay, let's go. Come on.
Hey, Rich. See what you did to us, Rich? You killed us with those penalties. You and Hellriegel. 2 times we were deep in the field. Rich, if the play's going by you, what's the use of a clip? But he can't hear the whistle when he's coming in like that full force. Yeah, but that's a terrible
not a
call.
cheap call. That kid was 4 yards away from that quarterback on his knees. Scoot. Don't tell me he couldn't stop.
Redskins, we're the best. We just made it. Shake it off, Steve. Shake it off. Go. Get Yeah.
We're going to catch some second half? Just one?
The second half boils down to how much do you want it? How much do you want it?
What a win! What a win! 1, 2, 3. Go, Terry! Go, Terry! Go!
On this day, the Fort Bragg Dolphins and the Cherryville Redskins tied. The Fort Bragg Packers defeated the Eastern Connecticut Falcons. Obviously, winning is the elixir at all levels, with or without the hype.
Even as the grown-up players get ready for this game, so too are the officials. Referee in charge today, Ben Dreith. But here's a look at referee Cal Lepore, as seen through the eyes of Time Magazine's Neil Leifer. The photographs of Neil Leifer. Some of us communicate with words, others with pictures. Football teams do both, and we'll get to that in a moment. And television deal in pictures and words. It's clear that we're in the communications business. What may not be so clear at times is that also in the communications business are football teams.
Right. 47, 96, 0. But on.
The language of football has come a long ways from the lines and circles that we used to draw in the dirt. What you've just seen, an example of two of the levels of communication for an offensive football team. Center Dave Dalby calling the blocking assignments for the line, and quarterback Jim Plunkett calling his signals. Each team in the NFL has its own special language, a mixture of terminology, words, code numbers, and names that mean something special to them. The language spoken in Oakland and Philadelphia can be just as different as the languages spoken in Oslo and Prague.
Okay, Randy, you're going to stack it. Okay, Bill, you're going to go ahead with your bow assignment. All right, now from here, you notice we don't have a hold up here, so get you a good buzz here. Randy, you be able to fall back in here because, again, he can get the 7 pattern.
Well, defensively, we have signals that we signal in, and we can signal in the entire defense. And usually we'll have an audible system where the players will make the adjustments on the field. We'll signal in the front and the coverage and any specific dog. And then sometimes we have a special dog for Hendricks. Sometimes we'll have a special type coverage, and we'll signal all that in. And then it's all according to game plan.
Communication is critical in pro football, as it is in any level of football. The communication between players and coaches, and the terminology is very extensive in pro football, and the communication during the ball game from the sideline to the field, like we signal our plays in, the defenses are signaled in, and then the transmission of the signal, everything has to be done right. It has to be received correctly, and then the quarterbacks have to turn around in the huddle and make the right calls as called by the sideline people. Communication is just one of the real critical areas of the game, because if one person breaks down in communication, it usually breaks down the offensive play or the defense.
During today's Super Bowl telecast, we're going to try and isolate on some of the different levels and types of communication that are such an important part of the game of football.
We're nearing the kickoff of Super Bowl XV. The Raiders and the Eagles about to get it on here under the dome. We come back. We'll hear from the coaches and what the quarterbacks might be thinking right after this. Put on American soil today after 444 days in captivity. They're at West Point. NBC News' Lloyd Dobbins was there. Let's get a report.
The convoy arrived in Highland Falls, New York, almost to West Point, just at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. In the village of Highland Falls, there are only 5,000 people, and most of them had been lining the street, waiting for the 17-vehicle motorcade to slowly creep from Stewart Airport to here. You can, for yourself, hear the reaction of the people. Lloyd Dobbins, NBC News, West Point. Now to Brian Gumbel at the Superdome in New Orleans.
At 11:30 Eastern Time tonight, NBC News will present a special report on the return of the hostages. It'll be called Homer the Brave. Hope you'll tune in for that. As we return back to our ball game, you know, we've talked a little bit about the defenses and a little bit about what both teams are going to try to accomplish today. Our two quarterbacks are now going to try to get inside the heads of Messrs. Jim Plunkett and Ron Jaworski.
In Super Bowl 15 in the telecast will be to try to get inside the heads of these quarterbacks. I'm going to take a look at Ron Jaworski, and you're going to look at Jim Plunkett.
Well, Lenny, you know that you can't take a look inside a quarterback's head, because the one quality that's most important in a fine quarterback is the fact that he's an individual. And there is no one that can totally duplicate his thinking. That's what makes him great. But there are common denominators that I think we can expose to the public to make it a little bit more entertaining and educational.
You know, last week I talked to Ron Jaworski and I said, hey, this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to get inside your head. He said, hey, lots of luck. If you find anything there, let me know. But you've known Jim Plunkett a long time. What's going through his mind?
I think Jim Plunkett has one thought. Let's do what got us here. He will attack the secondary. He will have a lot of trouble penetrating the defensive linebackers, because they are the strength of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's going to have a little trouble running, so his offensive line has to have a big day. If they can give him protection, allow his two wide receivers to do their thing, and Raymond Chester to get down the seam a few times, we can have a big day. Without that, it doesn't matter who I am.
You know,
let me ask you a question.
All right.
Did you ever find anything in Jaworski's head?
Yes, I did. You know, he is displaying a lot more confidence and poise under pressure situations. I attribute that to two people, I think. Dick Vermeil, the head coach, has kind of spoon-fed him for the last 2 years. And another man who's been working with the passing game and the quarterbacks in particular, Sid Gilman, a great football mind. Jaworski knows that he's got to get Montgomery working out there and get that running game going. If he does that, then he'll be able to pick and choose the times that he wants to throw the football.
And he's got a tough group to do it against.
Gentlemen, thank you, and we'll be looking forward to your reports during the course of the game. Interesting, a week ago, they were kidding you. They said the offense gets you to the Super Bowl. How about the defense?
Well, maybe we better remind them that the two best offensive teams in the league, San Diego and Los Angeles, are both watching this game on television.
All right, then, in your defensive eyes, what should we watch today?
Dick, when you put two very big and very physical teams on the field together, control of the line of scrimmage is essential. A lot of individual wars going on down there. 2 weeks ago in San Diego, the Oakland Raiders took the ball with 6 minutes and 32 seconds left in the game, marched down the field, controlled the line of scrimmage, and won the game.
in Philadelphia against the Dallas Cowboys, the Eagles were able to control both the offensive and defensive line of scrimmage. 263 yards rushing in that game. I really believe that the team that can control the line of scrimmage here in Super Bowl 15 will be the team that wins the game.
It's interesting, the first time they met when Philadelphia won 10-7, neither team was able to control the line of scrimmage. How about some individual stars? Just give us one on each side.
My first choice would be Ted Hendricks for Oakland. He's a guy that just makes things happen for them, causes a lot of trouble. On the other side of the line of scrimmage, an equally outstanding player in Carl Hairston.
And if you talk about defense, some say you should include the name of Ray Guy. So that's a focal point on defense. Let's go back to Brian Gumbel.
All right, Dick, thank you. Thank you, too, Merlin. We've heard from most of those involved, but let's turn our attention now to the two gentlemen who will be calling the shots, Dick Vermeil and Tom Flores. I talked to both, and they are delighted but not surprised to be here.
I'm not surprised that we made the playoffs. So I always felt all along that we were good enough to make the playoffs if we got to work and good things happened to us and we played the way we were capable of playing. And then once we got into the playoffs, then I felt we were as good as any other team. So from that day on, it hasn't surprised me that we are where we are.
Well, I think we're in the Super Bowl now because we have better football players than the other teams have that we played and beat. I don't think we've outsmarted anybody. A lot of credit's been given to us for our hard work ethics, but everybody in this league works hard. We do have very good football players, not as well known as a lot of people because they're not all first-round draft choices, but they're excellent football players.
We were two evenly matched teams, and it was going to be a very physical game, very hard-fought, and it could come down to maybe one play or two.
I think the first time you experience something like this, it's more exciting to you, and football is still a game of emotion and intensity, and we'll play like we've been here before. I'm not concerned about that.
We've tried to make it as normal a week as possible within the realm of the insanity that surrounds this kind of a game. And we're trying to keep the press out of our practices and our meetings and setting certain times aside for that so that we can make it as normal a week as possible, practice the same times that we do at home and do the same things that we do at home when we prepare.
It will be less of a year if we don't win. We came down here for one reason. That's play well enough to win, and there is no consolation in coming and losing, in our opinion.
We've got a lot more football talk to come, and we'll get to it. But before we do that, a final tribute to the jazz that is New Orleans from the Broadway cast of the musical Ain't Misbehaving.
Just me and my baby.
last 2 weeks, it's been the Raiders versus the Eagles, but it has also been Rozelle versus Davis. That after this. The dome is getting filled up, the players are getting ready, and the Lombardi influence is pervasive. It's Mrs. Marie Lombardi that will be part of the coin flip ceremony, and they'll be playing for the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Who better than to have for our kickoff report?
Old Spice presents Kickoff. Kickoff is brought to you by Old Spice Stick Deodorant, the deodorant that works overtime.
The Vince Lombardi Trophy, which goes to the winner of today's Super Bowl, was named for professional football's most honored, most respected coach, the guiding genius of Green Bay. Lombardi took over the dismal Packer franchise in 1959 and turned them into the next decade's symbol of excellence. He did it with the infinity of his football imagination, the sheer force of his will, and the simple brilliance of his ability to teach the game's fundamentals.
Nobody tackle. Just grab it, everybody. Grab. Nobody tackle. Put your shoulders in there out there.
Lombardi turned losers into winners, doubters into believers, good players into great ones into superstars. And somewhere along the way, he quietly became a legend. He coached Green Bay to 5 league championships in 7 years and preserved the old NFL's honor with decisive wins in the first 2 Super Bowls. He looked past the muscles and the brawn and found the man inside. In so doing, he permitted glimpses into his own soul, and what we found, we admired. Vince Lombardi, the coach who made character even more valued than talent.
That the Super Bowl was a celebration of sorts, the end of a season, the completion of an event. But the celebration this week has been tempered somewhat by the story beneath the main story. Oh, sure, people have been talking about the Eagles-Raiders matchup, but they've been talking just as much about the matchup of one Al Davis against Pete Rozelle. It is Al Davis who's made this a long season for Pete Rozelle and vice versa, and the depression, well, it's showing on both men. Pete, since Super 7, I've been coming to these and listening to you give your State of the League message to the press. I got to tell you, I have never heard you as down as you were this time.
I think it was partly fatigue. I will say, however, that I don't think I was as down as I perhaps sounded to you. But it is a depressant when you have the play on the field and the excitement of the fans at a level that I haven't seen since I took this job in 1960, and then you get things apart from what's happening on the field in certain ways intruding, perhaps even dominating the proceedings.
Has all the litigation, all that's gone on with Al Davis, has it spoiled what should be the final celebration of a season?
It isn't as much fun for me as it usually is at a Super Bowl, where you get up, you really get excited. You see so many people paying attention to this event that you're a part of. All of us in the NFL are. And it isn't as much fun.
Do you like Al Davis?
I guess the best way to answer that is that I always considered Al kind of a charming rogue. Frankly, I enjoyed being in his company. I'd say charming rogue. This is a much more serious thing, where someone comes into a league, becomes one of 28, which the Raiders did, first in 1960 in the old AFL, then in 1970 into the merged NFL. And they come in saying, all right, I come in and I'm going to bind myself to abide by the Constitution and the rules of my admission to the game. And then they say, a year ago, this rule I don't like. I think it's illegal. The fact that 21 of the 28 must approve when a franchise moves from one city to another. And that is, to me, more outlaw than charming rogue.
How much thought have you given to what you'll do if Oakland wins?
I feel that this Oakland team has done a tremendous job. Al has played his role in putting these parts together, and he's done a tremendous job in doing it. Tom Flores has done a great job in coaching. And that team, where they go along on defense, and Ray Guy for much of the year, Plunkett's courageous scrambling for key first downs to help win some close games, then the further development of their offense as the season went along. I have nothing but great respect for what they've achieved. So as far as I'm concerned, if the Raiders win it and I present that trophy to Al, I will have no problem, because I'll be presenting it on the basis that I just gave you.
The Al Davis that Pete Rozelle has been at odds with throughout the season has been called many things: outlaw, charming, rogue, football genius, and indeed he is in part all of those in the minds of some people. But he's a man who has always shrouded himself in mystery, a man who has always enjoyed the psychological edge. We tried to get Al Davis to come on and talk about his feelings about Pete Rozelle. He chose not to. We tried to get Al Davis to come on live. He chose not to. And so our Pete Axtone got a chance to talk to Al this week and has some thoughts about the man.
I think this is part of life and part of professional football. I love professional football, always will.
Yes, the guy does love football. He'll sit around and talk about it for hours like a kid with the biggest toy in the world. Yet now he's committing acts that some people say will bring anarchy to the National Football League. Similarly, Al Davis takes pride in being devious and sharp and cold-hearted in his dealings in the league. At the same time, last year when his wife Caroli suffered a stroke, she was in a coma 15 days, and he sat by that bedside, constantly talking to her, until finally, almost miraculously, she came out of it. So who is he? Is he a genius or a con man? Is he, in Pete Rozelle's phrase, a charming rogue who has become an outlaw? Well, Al isn't here to give us the answers. I've debated with him most of this week about whether he's going to come on camera to talk about this feud. He finally said no. His reasons: he wants to wait for his day in court. He'll let Pete Rozelle have the forum this week, and he'll wait for the court fight next week. And he says he doesn't want to distract from the game. But when I asked him, should I say that you wouldn't come on advice of your lawyers, his answer was kind of typical. Hell no, he said. I make the decisions around here. To boil it down, the issue is Al wants to move the Raiders to Los Angeles. The league says you got to take a vote before you can do that. The NFL position also has a kind of old-fashioned morality that appeals to many fans. The NFL is proud to be one league that does not abandon areas that give it strong fan support. Al, on the other hand, says that other owners have been allowed to move and other owners have been allowed to flirt with Los Angeles. He says that one set of rules is applied to the league, another set to Davis and the Raiders. The courts may resolve that debate, but they won't be able to wipe out the angrier charge.
The Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's 70 degrees outside, it's 70 degrees inside. The Superdome, the scene for Super Bowl 15, the championship of the National Football League. Well over 75,000 fans blessed with tickets to see today whether Oakland or Philadelphia will excel today as pro football champions. Hello, everyone. Dick Enberg. Welcome to football's answer to the Mardi Gras. And for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Oakland Raiders, the agony of this long two-week wait is just about over, Merlin Olsen.
I'm ready. Send me in, Coach. I'm ready to play. It's been hard on us, too. Not only is it tough for these players to wait for 2 weeks, Dick, but this is the toughest town in the NFL to play football in. There's so many distractions that keep you from thinking about football.
We've analyzed the game inside and out, from the bunions of Tony Franklin to the stickum that Lester Hayes uses. Why don't we try to simplify it for fans right now? One example from each side. How does the Oakland Raiders, how do they win today?
They have to do what got them into this game, what they do best, which is to go deep. They have to throw the ball deep. Plunkett needs extra time to do that. Defensively, the Eagles want to deny them the bomb, force them short, force them to be patient with the football.
You are nervous.
I'm nervous. I'm ready.
Jim Plunkett was successful at that. Of his 18 touchdown passes, they averaged 27 yards a throw. The Raiders like to go deep. All right, what do the Eagles have to do to win?
The Eagles are a ball control team. They want to run the football. They control the ball 2 weeks ago against Dallas. They'd like to do that today as well. Now, Oakland on the other side wants to force them to throw the ball so they can get their special defenses in for the passing game and shut them off.
The Raiders, of course, led the NFL in takeaways and, of course, have the interceptor supreme in Lester Hayes, who led the entire NFL. We're pleased to share the microphones today with two great former NFL quarterbacks, one of whom played in the very first Super Bowl. Let's go to Len Dawson and John Brody.
Lenny, all we've heard all week is how the anxieties get into the mind of the players 24 hours before the game, right up until game time. Now, I would like to make judgment on that fact, but since collectively we have 2 Super Bowls between us, I think I'll ask you, what is it and why?
Well, John, have you ever been so nervous that you can't sit, you can't stand, you can't be in one place for any more than 15 or 20 seconds? You cannot sleep at night. When you try to eat, the food stops just about there. You don't dare chew some gum and do something else at the same time. They are nervous right now. They want to get on with this contest. But the reason why is because this is the game. There's a lot of football games, but this is it. Anybody who has ever been involved in athletics has a dream to be known as the very best. They have an opportunity this afternoon to do that, because the team that wins, they will know in their hearts, everybody else will know that they are the very best, and they won't have to explain it to anybody.
Well, the fanfare's about over, and both teams are more than ready to have a go at it. Dick?
All right, John, we'll be looking for your reports during the course of the game. You know, as much as we tell ourselves to be cool about this, you can just hear it in all of our voices. We're up. And the emotions prior to that kickoff, I imagine the coaches right now are reminding them no mistakes, and it's going to be easy to fail in that regard.
In an important game like this, you don't want to give anything away easily. And turnovers could be the big difference in this game. The ball dropped on the carpet, the wrong end of the field. Somebody recovers the fumble. And this is not going to be an easy game to win anyway. You don't want to give it away.
I would think that the Raiders would have the advantage in that regard, and that they have 11 men who have played in a Super Bowl before. They can cool the others. The Eagles don't have a single player who have ever appeared in this game.
Playoff experience is very important. And I think that's a slight edge. But you got to remember that the Eagles are a team that plays almost all their games on artificial turf. They have the edge in that department.
Oh, we're about set to introduce the starting lineups. The Eagles and the Raiders will be back in the Superdome right after we pause for this.
A player introduction. Here is Dick Enberg of NBC Sports.
Introducing the champions of the American Conference, the Oakland Raiders. The offensive line. At right tackle, number 70, Henry Lawrence. Right guard, number 65, Mickey Marvin. At center, number 50, Dave Dalby. Left guard in his 24th playoff game, four-time All-Pro, number 63, Gene Upshaw. Left tackle, also four-time All-Pro, number 78, Art Shell. Now, the Oakland Raider receivers. Receiver, Oakland's leading receiver, 49 receptions, 10 touchdowns, number 85, Bob Chandler. At tight end, number 88, Raymond Chester. At wide receiver, number 21, Cliff Branch. The Oakland Raider backfield. Running back, number 33, Kenny King. And the Raiders' all-time leading rusher, number 30, Mark Van Egan. And at quarterback, the comeback player of the year, number 16, Jim Plunkett. Tackle number 76, Jerry Sizemore. At right guard, Dean of the Eagles at 37, number 69, Woody Peoples. At center, number 50, Guy Morris. Left guard, number 62, Petey Perreault. At left tackle, number 75, Stan Walters. Now for the Philadelphia Eagle receivers. Wide receiver, number 85, Charlie Smith. Tight end, number 84, Keith Prefley. At wide receiver, the NFL Man of the Year for his efforts on and off the field, number 17, Harold Carmichael. Now the Philadelphia Eagle backfield. Fullback, number 20, Leroy Harris. Halfback, quarterback, the Eagles' leading receiver and rusher, number 31, Wilbert Montgomery. And at quarterback, the NFC's top-rated passer, number 7, Ron Jaworski. The rest of the Philadelphia Eagles and their coach, Dick Vermeil. It's also a high honor to be selected to officiate this game. Now let's meet the men who will work Super Bowl 15.
Ben Reith, referee. Frank Sinkovitz, umpire.
Tony Viteri, head linesman.
Tom Dooley, line judge.
Tom Kelleher, back judge. Dean Look, side judge.
Fritz Graff, field judge. Dick Jorgensen, alternate. John Keck, alternate.
Our color guard for today's game is the Golden Eagle color guard from Quincy, Illinois. The flags are from the states which have teams in the National Football League, plus the District of Columbia. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to please rise for a moment of silent thanks for the safe return home of the former hostages. Thank you. And now to honor America and a very special group of Americans in West Point, New York, some of whom are watching right now, please join Miss Helen O'Connell in singing our national anthem. O'Connell with our national anthem. We're all proud of those brave 52 Americans. Welcome home. Viva la Patriots. You know, it gives this game perspective. As excited as football is about the Super Bowl, we realize there are things so much more important happening all around us. Now the flag of Tie a Yellow Ribbon by the Southern University Marching Band. Become a symbol of America's unity, and there on the outside, 80 feet across, 30 feet high on the Superdome. Every fan received at least one yellow ribbon, over 97 miles of ribbon that stretch out to those that have made us all think about some very important things. Welcome home. Welcome home. Home Are the Brave, a special NBC feature later tonight on this network.
Ladies and gentlemen, we direct your attention to the far side of the field, where referee Ben Bright escorts Marie Lombardi, the widow of the late Vince Lombardi, to the center of the field for the toss of the coin. A big Super Bowl welcome for Marie Lombardi.
Mrs. Lombardi, who now makes her home in Palm Beach, Florida. And when asked, what do you think Vince would be thinking right now, reacting to your being honored? She said, and I quote, somewhere up there he's looking down and saying, what in hell is that woman doing out on the football field?
And now let's listen to referee Ben Bright.
I want you to meet the Oakland captains. There's Captain Upshaw, Captain Hendricks, Captain Christensen. Captains Philadelphia, Jaworski, Carmichael, Giamona, and Harrison. Okay, men, Mrs. Lombardi is going to flip the coin, and a captain from Oakland will call it in the air. Captain Christensen, call a coin in the air. Heads, he called. If the tails, Philadelphia won the toss.
So the Eagles are the first winner. Little side note, Mrs. Lombardi had to practice the flip of the coin. That's a heavy piece of metal. She had trouble getting it off her palm in the rehearsal. Did a beautiful job at game time.
I'm sure Vince would have given her high marks for that one.
Indeed. We're about set for the opening kickoff. The Oakland Raiders and the Philadelphia Eagles will be back after these messages from your local station.